Mom and Dad, I don't know if you'll ever read this. Maybe I'm writing it because I've spent 5 years replaying one night in my head, and I've finally realized memories don't disappear just because we stop talking about them. I was 17 when I told you I was pregnant. I still remember how carefully I chose my words. I wasn't asking you to solve anything. I was terrified, ashamed, and hoping that if I admitted the truth before anyone else found out, I would still have a family when the conversation ended. Instead, Dad, you looked at me as though I had become someone else. You're no daughter of mine. Mom, you opened the front door before I had even stopped crying. Get out. You've disgraced us. The strange thing is that I don't remember packing. I only remember standing outside with one bag, wondering how a house I'd lived in my whole life could suddenly belong to strangers. The first year after my son was born wasn't dramatic. It was simply exhausting. There were nights when I ate toast so he could have proper food. There were mornings when I walked him to daycare before catching 2 buses to work. I learned how to stretch every paycheck and how to smile even when I hadn't slept for more than 3 hours. People often say raising a child alone makes you strong. I don't think that's true. It makes you tired. Strength comes later, almost by accident. Little by little, life stopped feeling like survival. An older woman who lived downstairs taught me how to fix broken furniture instead of throwing it away. My manager trusted me with more responsibility after noticing I never missed a shift. Friends I hadn't expected stayed. They never tried to replace you. They simply stayed. Somewhere along the way, I stopped waiting for my phone to ring. Your silence became part of the furniture of my life. It was always there, but eventually I stopped noticing it. Every hour my son grew. He loved dinosaurs. He laughed too loudly in grocery stores. He always tilted his head when he was thinking exactly the way Grandpa used to. That resemblance hurt more than I admitted. Then, 5 years later, everything shifted because of something neither of us planned. A relative passed away, leaving behind property that required every immediate family member to attend a legal mediation before anything could be settled. I almost refused. But avoiding one afternoon wasn't worth carrying another decade of unfinished business. The meeting room felt smaller than I expected. You both looked older. So did I. A mediator greeted everyone, checked our identification, and asked us to take our seats. My son sat beside me, quietly coloring with the pencils I'd packed in my bag. Neither of you noticed him at first, then he looked up. He smiled. Dad's face lost every trace of color. Mom whispered so softly I almost didn't hear it. What is this? My son blinked, confused by the silence. Then he tucked one leg underneath himself exactly the way you used to, Dad. The same posture, the same thoughtful expression, the same tiny wrinkle between his eyebrows. Mom covered her mouth. Oh, it wasn't magic. It was genetics finally standing in the room where denial no longer could. No one raised their voice. The mediator glanced between us, then returned to the paperwork without emotion. For the record, she said calmly, all legal documents recognize Miss Carter as the child's sole parent and guardian. Any matters concerning the child remain entirely her decision. She wasn't defending me. She was simply stating a fact, but for the first time since I was 17, someone in authority acknowledged the life I had built instead of the mistake everyone once believed I represented. The room became impossibly quiet. Dad finally asked, "That's his name," I answered. He repeated it once, almost like he was testing whether he deserved to say it. Mom asked if he liked school. He nodded and proudly explained his favorite subject was science because everything has a reason. No one cried, no one embraced. 5 years cannot disappear because a child smiles. When the meeting ended, Mom reached toward me before letting her hand fall. We made terrible choices, she whispered. I believed her. That didn't mean I knew what came next. Forgiveness isn't a door that swings open because someone finally knocks. Sometimes it's just agreeing not to lock it forever. As we walked to the parking lot, my son slipped his hand into mine. Who were those people? He asked. I looked back once. You were still standing there, watching us leave. Their family, I said carefully. He accepted the answer with the uncomplicated trust only children possess. I realized then that I wasn't walking away because I'd won. I was walking away because I no longer needed to prove that leaving your house hadn't ruined my life. It hadn't. It had simply forced me to build a different one. Whether you become part of it now isn't a decision made by guilt, biology, or old photographs. It will be made by time, consistency, the kind of love that stays after difficult conversations end. For the first time in years, that choice belongs to me. And strangely enough, carrying that responsibility feels lighter than carrying your rejection ever did.